Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, Making Home Safe for a Person Living with Dementia. My name is Kirk Moody, and I'm serving as the moderator for today's webinar. I'm a former caregiver myself, and I'm also a board member of Alzheimer's Los Angeles. The subject of today's webinar is of particular personal importance to me. 8 years ago, my wife, Nancy Policus, wandered from a family visit to an art museum. We were on the way out and stopped at the restroom, and when I finished, Nancy had literally disappeared. We called the police, then enlisted many friends and family and volunteers to look for her. We continued searching for her for 2 years until tragically her remains were found. So I beg of you to listen to our experts on how to make your home a safer environment for those living with dementia and steps you can take to ensure that if they do wander, they can be found quickly and reunited with you. We'd like to thank the Union Pacific Railroad Community Ties Giving Program for providing the grant funding to support today's webinar. And before we start, let me go over a couple of logistics. All of you will be muted today, so if you speak, we won't be able to hear you. But we are accepting questions. There's a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to hit that button and type any questions you have. And at the end of the presentations, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. If we don't get to that question, we'll email you back an answer later on. If you have any technical problems, please put your information in the Q&A and we'll attempt to contact you right away. This presentation is being recorded, and a link to the recording will be sent to the email that you registered with. So today's presentation will feature welcome remarks from Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, home safety presentation from Alzheimer's Los Angeles, a presentation from LA Found, and some time for questions. So to start today's presentation, we have some welcome remarks from our co-sponsor, Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, who represents the 3rd District.
Thank you for joining us for this home safety event. An estimated 190,300 people in Los Angeles County are living with Alzheimer's and other dementias. For families impacted by dementia, wandering and home safety is an everyday concern. Getting lost or disoriented can be terrifying because the consequence of not locating that person quickly can be deadly. I strongly believe families in Los Angeles County should be able to rely on our support services when their loved one has wandered. They need to have access to resources, education, and information, which is why I'm pleased we have the LA Found program. The LA Found program is connecting families to resources, providing education, and working with law enforcement to help prevent and address wandering. I hope that today's webinar is informational and helps you in your caregiving journey.
Next, I'd like to introduce Roxy Kirakoshian. She's the Associate Director for Community Education at Alzheimer's Los Angeles. She's going to speak about how to make adjustments in your home to make it safer. Roxy?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much, Kirk. I'm glad to be here. We will be talking about how to make the home safe for someone living with Alzheimer's. Let's move forward and see our objectives for today. This is what we will cover. We will provide you with a basic overview of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. We will briefly mention the IDEA strategy that we use for behaviors, and we will discuss the 4 most common safety concerns. This training is intended for risk reduction, not prevention. We will give you some tips and tools that you will use in the home to try to make it as safe as possible for the person that you are caring for. Let's go to the next slide. What is dementia? We use dementia as a general term. Sometimes you may hear individuals using the terms dementia and Alzheimer's disease interchangeably, but they are 2 very different things. Dementia is describing a set of symptoms. This includes impaired thinking and memory, and when the impairment starts to seriously interfere with daily life. We like to think of dementia as the condition that causes either Alzheimer's disease, which accounts for estimated 60 to 80% of the cases, but we also have other common causes of dementia. like vascular dementia, mixed dementia, Lewy bodies, Parkinson's dementia, Huntington's dementia, frontotemporal dementia, just to name a few. But all in all, we like to think of dementia as the trunk of the tree and the branches as the different diseases. Let's go to the next slide. We are going to watch a short video on what is Alzheimer's disease that illustrates how it spreads to different areas of the brain and how it will ultimately impact the individual with the diagnosis.
What is Alzheimer's disease? Alzheimer's is a slow, fatal disease of the brain affecting 1 in 10 people over the age of 65. No one is immune. The disease comes on gradually as 2 abnormal protein fragments called plaques and tangles accumulate in the brain and kill brain cells. They start here in the hippocampus, the part of the brain where memories are first formed. Over many years' time, the plaques and tangles slowly destroy the hippocampus, and it becomes harder and harder to form new memories. Simple recollections from a few hours or days ago that the rest of us might take for granted are just not there. After that, more plaques and tangles spread into different regions of the brain, killing cells and compromising function wherever they go. This spreading around is what causes the different stages of Alzheimer's. From the hippocampus, the disease spreads here to the region of the brain where language is processed. When that happens, it gets tougher and tougher to find the right word. Next, the disease creeps toward the front of the brain, where logical thought takes place. Very gradually, a person begins to lose the ability to solve problems, grasp concepts, and make plans. Next, the plaques and tangles invade the part of the brain where emotions are regulated. When this happens, the patient gradually loses control over moods and feelings. After that, the disease moves to where the brain makes sense of things it sees, hears, and smells. In this stage, Alzheimer's wreaks havoc on a person's senses and can spark hallucinations. Eventually, the plaques and tangles erase a person's oldest and most precious memories, which are stored here in the back of the brain. Near the end, the disease compromises a person's balance and coordination, and in the very last stage, it destroys the part of the brain that regulates breathing and the heart. The progression from mild forgetting to death is slow and steady, and takes place over an average of 8 to 10 years. It is relentless and, for now, incurable. Helping your family, friends, and neighbors to better understand Alzheimer's will reduce stigma, improve care, and even help the fight for a cure. Thanks for helping to do your part. Learn more at www.aboutalz.org.
That was a good video to illustrate that Alzheimer's disease affects the way the brain works ultimately. And this is why people have certain behaviors, or they may behave a certain way, and they don't really have control over some of these behaviors. So when we talk about making the home safe, one of the foundations of that is how to reduce those difficult behaviors as much as possible. So in order to ultimately make the home safe, introduce those safety measures, we talk about 3 main strategies, and that's changing the behavior, changing the environment, and changing our thinking. When we're talking about changing the behavior, this can mean addressing the cause of the behavior, and also not necessarily providing a solution or stopping the behavior, but trying to lessen it and trying to make the individual feel as comfortable as possible. When we are talking about the strategy of changing the environment, that can mean to physically change the space. Maybe the space that they are in right now is a trigger, and that's what is causing that behavior. Sometimes it is helpful to move them into a different physical space. And also the third one, changing your thinking, is changing our expectations. And for us to understand that the person may not have control over what they are doing. And it is up to us to change our perspective and to change our expectations. Next slide. When we talk about changing a behavior, we use a model called the IDEA model. It's a three-step model, which the acronym is IDEA. The ID stands for identify, the E stands for explore, and the A stands for adapt. When we go to the next slide, we will show you step by step on what each of these key acronyms stand for. So when we look at identify, this is where we are trying to be as specific as possible. We try to name and describe the behavior. If you could call it something, what would you call it? And what is this challenging behavior? We have to be very specific and try to answer the questions: where, how often, how long, and it helps to have a log and to keep a track of the behavior so you know when it started and when it comes up, just so we can address any patterns that show up. What was happening before the behavior started? And what time of day do you see this happening? So this is very specific, and the reason why we do this is initially to try to understand what is happening in that current moment. And once we try to understand what is happening, we try to take steps to try to reduce that behavior. In step 2 of the IDEA model, the educate, the E, this is where we put our detective hat on. This is where we do some investigative work. We try to learn about the behavior, figure out why they are doing what they are doing. And it may not always be obvious, but if we do try to understand the meaning and understand the cause of the behavior, it becomes easier for us to address it and lessen it in the future. So when we try to understand the cause of the behavior, we could see if it's related to a health trigger, if it's related to the environment, the activity at hand, or if it might be due to a communication challenge. When we're talking about a health cause, it could be that they are taking new medications, maybe they are sick, maybe they have a urinary tract infection, maybe they are in pain, and maybe they are not able to tell you that they are in pain or they are feeling uncomfortable. So it's up to us to try to understand that. When we look at the environment, we could see that the environment may be causing or is a trigger to these behaviors. It might be that it's too noisy. It might be that it's too hot, it's too cold. Maybe they are in an unfamiliar area, unfamiliar place. Maybe it's too light, it's too dark. We have to try to find that balance where they are feeling most comfortable at their best. And sometimes the environment can cause these triggers. Maybe it's the activity at hand. Maybe the task that we assigned or the activity that they are doing is too hard. Maybe it's too easy. Maybe they're overstimulated or understimulated. And we have to find that balance, but it does take some practice. And it can be that the task requires too many steps. Maybe they are unable to follow a recipe from beginning to end. Maybe that is what is causing that confusion, for example, but maybe they are still able to safely chop vegetables or to mix ingredients together. It could also be due to a communication challenge, and communication can be challenging for a lot of individuals with the disease. It can be hard to keep up with the conversation. It can be difficult to speak. It can be embarrassing not to be able to find the words. So there are some challenges in this area as well. The behavior could be related to any of these causes, and not only one cause, it could be related to more than one as well. It could be a health concern, and it can also be a communication challenge. But we do have to keep in mind that every single individual is different. And we say, if you know one person with Alzheimer's disease, you know one person with Alzheimer's disease, because it affects every single person differently. Let's go to the next slide and look at the final step. This is adapt. This is where we have to do something about it. This is where we have to go into action. And sometimes that means adjusting our expectations. So in order to try to change the behavior or try to lessen the behavior in the future, we have to make some necessary changes, and that means to take control. Sometimes that can mean changing the environment, so the physical space. Maybe it helps to move them into another room where they feel more calm and more quiet. It can also mean that we may try to distract or redirect them, maybe offer something to eat, listen to some quiet, calming music, or maybe a relaxing activity, watching TV, listening to the radio. Sometimes we have to address the cause right then and there. Maybe the task or the activity is too hard or it's too simple. We have to find those meaningful activities that keep our loved ones calm and content. Addressing the emotional needs. So that can be many different things, and we all have different emotional needs. And sometimes it's not obvious in the beginning, but when we do try to see it from a different perspective, we can try to come up with strategies. Also, changing our attitudes and our expectations. It's important for us to realize that as caregivers, we should be the ones to change, not the people that we are caring for, not the persons that have the diagnosis. And sometimes this can allow us to see things from a different perspective to try to come up with realistic strategies. Let's go to the next slide. So now we will cover the common safety concerns that may arise in the home. This can be accidents, falls related to medications, medication management, and getting lost and wandering. So the next one we'll talk about is accidents. Let's go to this slide. Just because individuals with the diagnosis are able to safely do things around the home, for example, using kitchen appliances, using the stove, the microwave, even though they were able to do that safely before, it doesn't necessarily mean that it may be safe now. So as caregivers and as family members, sometimes we have to try to see and evaluate situations to see if it is safe for them to continue to use these appliances and do things in order to prevent and reduce accidents as much as possible. People with Alzheimer's may have trouble knowing what is now dangerous that may not have been dangerous before. So let's go to the next slide where we will see some potential accidents. So preventing serious accidents, first, it's very important to lock away any knives and guns that we may have in the home. So any firearms, make sure that they are locked away and not loaded. So no weapons, no bullets in the weapons. And because even within the home, even in their own home, individuals with dementia and Alzheimer's may become confused and fearful. Also, even with people that they love and trust. And that's because confusion is always a possibility. And when there is a sense of confusion, that can cause anxiety, that can cause aggression, that can cause fear. And ultimately, when we are in that state of confusion, when we are in that state of anxiety, what we try to do is come out of that anxiety. We try to take an action. And for us, we are able to use reason and logic to come up with that action. But sometimes individuals with dementia and Alzheimer's disease, as we saw in the video, it impacts those cognitive elements. And sometimes it can be a very dangerous situation. Let's go to the next slide. So here are some tips to prevent accidents. So in the kitchen, a lot of accidents can occur. So it's important for us to be mindful and aware of that. Sometimes it's important to control the temperature of the water, and you can do that. You can reduce the temperature of the water heater to 120 degrees to prevent burning. You can install certain anti-scalding devices on the faucets so you can prevent burnings. And also the stove, there's certain things that you can buy, certain gadgets that allow the stove to be automatically turned off. And what you can do is, if it is a trigger, you can remove the stove knobs completely until you have to use it. And in terms of dinnerware, you can use plastic eating and drinking ware rather than glass or ceramic, because glass and ceramic, if they fall and break, that can cause an accident or a cut, and it can be a medical emergency, and we want to avoid that. Throughout the house, we can make sure that chairs and tables are sturdy with strong backs so we can prevent falls, locking away sharp items, cleaning supplies, because again, those can be triggers or it can be confusing to the eye. And sometimes cleaning supplies may look like, for example, if it's cleaning supply, it may look like juice. And that can be scary and that can cause medical emergency. We want to avoid that. So locking away as much as possible. Locking kitchen and bathroom doors if it is a safety concern. and visuals throughout the house. So sometimes the door can be a trigger that send mixed signals to the brain that we need to open the door and we need to go out the house because we have somewhere to be. But if we do put decals on the door or glass door, because there are certain visual perceptual changes as well, a glass door may not seem like a glass door, and someone with dementia may perceive it as an area where they can walk through it, and that can be a potential accident. So if you put a sticker or a glass or a decal on a glass door, we can prevent that. We can also use contrasting colors to increase visibility on certain items, and we can do that on the staircase, we can do it on handrails in order to make sure that people are being safe as much as possible. Let's go to the next slide. Falls. Falls are also common accidents within the home, and there are certain things that we can do to make sure that we are reducing falls as much as possible. Let's go to the next slide. So individuals with the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease have certain rights under the American Disabilities Act. And what you can do is have certain handrails and equipment installed within your home. And if you call our helpline, we will provide you with that phone number at the end of the presentation. We can give you some information on how you can get that started. So as you can see on the images here, there's different ways you can install some of these safety measures. For example, getting a chair within the home to make bathing easier, certain handrails within the tub and shower, grab rails that can be installed all throughout the house. Next slide. The falls can be common for many different reasons. It can happen because of muscle weakness. It can happen because of poor balance, gait issues. And the reason why this may also occur is because of a decrease in exercise. And it's really critical for us as caregivers to try to maintain consistency in terms of exercise, stretching, in order to make sure that we are keeping our muscles strong as much as possible. And if there are any physical limitations, there are exercises that we can do seated. So chair yogas, chair exercises, stretches while sitting down. Within the home, we can install handrails in the bathroom, stairs, and even on the bed to make mobility easier. And if you do have any rugs or any carpets, make sure that there are rubber-based and non-slip and there are no floor wax. And if there are floor wax, even though it is not slippery, it can still send mixed signals that it looks shiny. And individuals with dementia may want to avoid that area because it looks slippery and shiny, and that may cause a fall or an accident. We want to remove floor clutter as much as possible, such as shoes, shoe racks, boxes, cords, etc., because we want to make sure that the floor is clear, free from those things. Having good lighting, making sure it's not too light and it's not too dark, and we can control it by certain curtains, certain blinds in the windows. And for the person with the diagnosis, we want to make sure that they have comfortable clothing. The clothing is not too tight, it's not too baggy, it's not too long. What may have been comfortable before may not necessarily be comfortable now. We want to make sure that they have good, sturdy shoes without laces. Velcro can be helpful in this situation to prevent falls. We want to exercise as much as possible to make sure that we are strengthening those leg muscles. And as for us, the caregivers, what we can do is to make sure that we are not rushing our loved ones. We are giving them plenty of time for activities. And if we are giving them plenty of time for activities, this can reduce accidents and reduce falls. Because when we are rushing, we also tend to be a little bit more forgetful. And that can cause a little bit of anxiety and confusion. And in turn, that can also cause a behavior. So if we slow down, take a deep breath, and allow for more time, and also plan ahead, we can make sure that everybody is being safe within the home. Next slide. Medications. This is critical because medication management is a big safety concern, and we need to take the proper safety precautions. So going into the next slide, we will talk about some of the concerns relating to medications and how we can keep our loved ones safe. Going into the next slide, So preventing medication mismanagement, it's always critical to first and foremost speak to the doctor to make sure that you have a plan in place and that you are prepared. And when there is a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease or another related dementia, we need to plan to be involved as much as possible. This is making sure that there is a designated person to administer the medications and to make sure that we are prioritizing the important medications first. So we speak to the doctor and we address any concerns that we have, and we prioritize the important medications first, and we come up with a plan. Going into the next slide, we will talk about some additional steps. Some medication safety tips. It's important for us to be organized as much as possible, and that means to make a list and keep an updated list of all the medications. And this includes prescribed medications, over-the-counter medications, vitamins, and supplements as well. Also, we need to keep local poison control numbers, emergency room numbers on hand. In case of a crisis, in case of an emergency, we know who to call. We know what those steps are. In terms of medication management, it's important for us to keep the undispensed medications in its original containers and clearly labeled. The reason why we do this is we do not want to move the medications into Ziploc bags or other containers. It's very easy for us to mix and match or confuse the medications, and that can cause a medical emergency, that can cause overdosing, that can cause, an emergency that we want to easily avoid. We want to use a pillbox organizer if that is something that you prefer. There's different kinds. There's one for mornings and one for evenings. And this can be easy for us to know when the medications were administered. So we don't have a situation where we are guessing if we administer the medication, if we took the medication, or if we did not. For the caregiver, you can keep a regular schedule. You can put it on the calendar, or you can program certain reminders on your phone. You can use simple words when you are administering the medications. Give simple, clear instructions and short sentences. And if the person you are caring for is refusing to take the medications at that time, that's okay, that happens. What you can do is move on, redirect, distract to another pleasant activity, and come back soon after when they are feeling a little bit better. And sometimes you know your loved one best, so you can find that time of day when they are feeling more content and happy, when they are feeling their best, and you can try and attempt to administer medications at that time. Let's go to the next slide. Getting lost and wandering. This is a big topic for our presentation today, and it is estimated that over 60% of individuals with Alzheimer's disease will wander at some point in their disease journey. When we go into the next slide, we'll talk about some of the safety measures we can put in place to make sure that they are being safe and not getting lost and wandering. Getting lost and wandering tips, what we can do is keep certain things on hand, which is, again, the medications. This is very critical because when there is an emergency, one of the first things that we need to report is the medications that they are taking and the dosage that they are taking, how often they take it, along with any certain allergies that they have, along with the doctor's information, the doctor's names, the doctor's phone numbers, any insurance information, and any legal paperwork. If there's power of attorney for finances and for legal matters, those photocopies, those legal documents need to be readily available. In terms of identification and tracking, there are different kinds of programs that are available. The first one is the Medic Alert or the Safe Return Program, which is an identification that can be in the form of a bracelet or a necklace. And if you call our helpline, we can give you more information regarding that. When there is an incident of wandering or someone getting lost, if that person were to be found, there's an emergency phone number on that bracelet or necklace. We also encourage the caregiver to wear one as well in case something were to happen to you. And if you were found, first responders and individuals would know that you are caring for someone with Alzheimer's disease and to make sure that they are being checked on. There's also tracking devices, GPS wristbands, other tracking devices that are widely available. And one major program that we want to emphasize here for this presentation is the LA Found Tracking Bracelet. And this is controlled by radio frequency that is managed through the Sheriff's Department. And if you call our helpline, we can also provide you with more information on how you can get started with enrolling in this program. Certain home modifications that can be done within the home to make sure that we are preventing wandering and getting lost as much as possible. There are certain alarms that you can install within your home. These can be in the form of door alarms or bells or certain motion detector alarms. So whether there is any in and out of the door, in and out of the house, that can be, you can be alerted. There can be noise and you can go and easily check on that individual. There are certain bed pad alarms. So if an individual were to get up, you would get alerted. There's rug alarms. There's all kinds of gadgets that can be purchased online, and we can provide you with more information if you are interested. Even though these are things that you may not need at this time, it's good to have these things on hand so you can be prepared. And you don't necessarily want to make a decision in times of crisis. You want to make sure you are well prepared in case something were to happen. Even though safety is not a concern right now, you may not necessarily relate to these things at this time. Know that it can potentially happen in the future. We want to make sure that we are securing doors. This can mean covering doors. Sometimes the door is a big trigger. And what we can do is put certain signs. For example, some caregivers have put a stop sign on the door, and the stop sign tells you that stop, this is not a barrier that you need to cross. Some caregivers have put curtains over the doors to make it seem like it is a window. You can also secure the outside of your home. So if there is any gates, any yard doors, those are also secured. Any fences, those are also secured. And if there are any shoes, keys, purse, coats, and hats, those are also put away, maybe in the closet or out of sight, because again, these are triggers, and it sends signals to our brain that we need to put the shoes on, we need to grab the keys, purse, coat, and be on our way out. When we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about some tips. Or I guess that was our last slide. We're right on time. We ended a little early, and this is great because it gives us an opportunity to address any certain safety concerns that you may have within the home or any questions that you may have. But we want to emphasize certain programs and services that we offer at Alzheimer's Los Angeles. First and foremost is our helpline. I alluded to our helpline a couple times in the presentation today, but if you want certain information on some of the programs that we talked about, like the LA Found or the Medical Alert Bracelet, please call our helpline, and that is 844-435-7259, and is posted on the chat box. We'll show it on the upcoming slides as well. You will speak with a care counselor, and our care counselors are able to provide you with referrals. They are able to provide you with disease support and education, and they are able to work with you and your family to come up with a care plan. And our care counselors also provide care consultation. Again, they'll meet with you, meet with your family to come up with a specific and individual care plan. We have support groups. We have over 40-50 support groups within LA County in different modalities. Some are virtual, some are in person. And it's a safe space for you to gather with other family caregivers, others who are caring for loved ones with Alzheimer's disease or another related dementia. And it's very therapeutic and supportive to be able to speak with others who understand. We also have education and training, sort of like this program that we did today. And that information can be found on our website. You can register directly on our website, or you can call our helpline for more information. And there's many different ways that you can get involved with us. You can volunteer and fundraise and help spread the word about Alzheimer's disease and our organization. In the next slide, I believe we have our website and our helpline. Again, 844-HELP-ALZ stands for 844-435-7259. And our website is alzheimersla.org. And we have also our social media channels. If you are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, we have a lot of great resources on all of these different platforms, and we would love to connect with you. So stay in touch with us, connect, and if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us.
What a great presentation. What a tremendous amount of information. It's incredibly useful. So as a reminder that Roxy just pointed out, there is a Q&A button. If you have any questions, just please feel free to put them in there. So next, I'd like to welcome Christina Michiraggio. She's the Community Services Analyst for the LA Found program at the Los Angeles County Department of Aging and Disability. Christina?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Kirk, and thank you, Alzheimer's LA, for an incredible presentation and very informative. So I'm going to continue with the LA Found program, and we can go to the next slide. So the LA Found program is a county-wide initiative, and it focuses on protecting, locating, and identifying persons with cognitive impairments such as Alzheimer's, dementia, or autism who are prone to wandering. And if you want to talk about a little bit of wandering before we go into the next information here, I wanted to just quickly give a few signs. If you don't know already, some of the common signs are returning from a regular walk or drive later than usual, forgetting how to get to familiar places, talking about fulfilling former obligations such as going to work. And Roxy mentioned the triggers. So some of them become, sometimes there's pacing, restlessness, repetitive movements. And when that happens, as she mentioned, there are some great devices out there, and we're going to go over that a little bit. So let me go talk about the LA Found program. Number one, it was inspired by Nancy Polikas, who is Kirk Moody's wife, he mentioned in the very beginning. And this program was launched in 2018 by a motion authored by Supervisor Janice Hahn and Catherine Barger with the LA County Board of Supervisors. A task force was established called Bringing Your Loved Ones Home. They drafted a 17 strategy report that would ensure that those families caring for family members with cognitive impairments have a safety plan in place. So on this slide, you'll see the four main components would be the enhanced coordination, technology solutions, prevention, education and training, and social engagement. As part of the enhanced coordination, this is a countywide collaborative coordination effort, and it does involve the Sheriff's Department of LA County, Department of Mental Health, Department of Public Health. And so the sheriffs are the ones who are responsible for conducting the search when a program participant goes missing. So right now, our current technology solutions are the Project Lifesaver bracelet. This is a radio frequency device, and we also have the Theora Care smartwatch, which is a new GPS device that we are able to offer. So LA Found, I'll go to the next slide. LA Found did partner with Project Lifesaver International, which is a program all over the world and throughout different regions of the United States. In California, there are many agencies up north and a few down here in Southern California, including the LA County Sheriffs, which is our main source of training other law enforcement agencies. We do have Monrovia PD, and we have, I believe, something in San Bernardino. So, and I think there are a couple more down in Southern California. So participants who apply for Project Lifesaver wear a small radio transmitter on the wrist that emits an individualized frequency signal. Usually those numbers start with 218 and end in 3 other digits. And those numbers are very important and unique. The caregivers are responsible for making sure that the bracelet stays on their loved one's wrist and report their loved one if they go missing by calling 911. The responding law enforcement jurisdiction, which is probably sometimes LAPD or Long Beach or whatever area you're in, it could also be the sheriffs would be the first to respond. They can request the mutual aid assistance from the sheriff's mental evaluation team. And LASD MET, as we call them, use specialized receivers, as you see. These are antennas to search for the participant's individualized radio frequency. So those who wear the Theora Care Watch, or GPS, it's a smartwatch, which does stand for Global Positioning System. This is also worn on the wrist. It works differently because it is something that can be tracked by the phone. There's an app on the phone. And these devices are through clairvoyant networks. So next slide, please. To qualify for this program and to receive a tracking bracelet, the criteria is that somebody in your family who has either Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, if they have a brain injury, other cognitive impairments like developmental disabilities, are prone to wandering, and are an LA County resident, live in the LA County. That's it. There is no income requirement. It just basically those three. The participants will receive a free Project Lifesaver or Theora Care tracking device. And right now, I will say that we have Project Lifesavers more readily available, and we'll have more Theora Care coming soon. They will also get free replacement batteries and wristbands for the Project Lifesaver, and then spare parts each year. And then you will get continued support and recommendations to keep your loved ones safe, as well as resources. We are very close with Alzheimer's LA, as well as many other resources. Here in the Aging and Disabilities Department, we have many different types of resources and can help you just with anything that you need as far as transportation. And we can go over some of that information at the end if you have a request. Next slide. In order to apply, there are different ways. You can either apply online at this link, which is lafound.ad.lacounty.gov, and we'll go ahead and post that link. You can also send an email. We can send you an email as far as like a PDF, and then you can reply and send it back. You can call the 833 number 569-7651. And then our email is lafound@ad.lacounty.gov. Now the LAFound team reviews the application once they receive it. Thank you, Kelly. And the authorized agent or caregiver will be notified about the next steps. Eligible individuals will receive either device, and after the first year, the spare parts are available. So as far as, let's go to the next slide. Let's talk about some of the responsibilities that we would request. And when we go over a program, basically it's an orientation. When you sign up for this program, we'll go over these responsibilities. And so let's go over who can be the agent. If I say authorized agent, many people don't quite know what that means. And so if you think about it, it will be a conservator, an agent with power of attorney, an agent with advanced healthcare directive. And it can also be the surrogate decision maker. If you don't have a power of attorney, and if you don't have that advanced healthcare directive, being a spouse, domestic partner, adult son or daughter, custodial parent, adult brother or sister, and the next of kin. But we do recommend that you try to go and follow through with someone that can help you with a power of attorney. And it's very much recommended because of any of the next phases of Alzheimer's and dementia and just being a caregiver. So as far as what to do with this bracelet, the responsibilities that we will ask you is to test that device daily. This is the Project Lifesaver device. You test the device daily using a battery tester, which is provided in the package that we send. Change the battery every 60 days. Comply with any informational and reporting guidelines. And then understand that this is a tracking tool to assist in locating of a participant. It should not be anything along the lines of put the bracelet on and then walk away. This is basically something that you are very much have to be on top of it. And then to contact 911 immediately if your loved one goes missing. Next slide. Now, Ellie found at a glance, I'll just mention that we do have about 1,800 tracking bracelets issued, a little over that. We have had about 28 successful rescues involving LASD and many more with the identification of the actual bracelet worn on the wrist. And calls go in, and sometimes they can find just by identifying that they're wearing something. Community outreach, we have about 100 plus events, and we have participated in about 25 webinars. And then we also have more webinars, which I'll talk about in a moment. And we've had also many, quite a few awards. Next slide. Talking about the webinars, just like this amazing webinar with Alzheimer's LA, we are so grateful to be able to conduct webinars with other experts. And we do we've had a few that you can look on the Aging and Disabilities YouTube channel and find some of the past ones. And so we've had it focuses on wandering prevention, Alzheimer's, brain health. We focus on some of the other behavioral and family caregiver support. And so if you do want, actually, if you have any outreach requests or any webinar requests or ideas, please send them our way to lafound@ad.lacounty.gov. Next slide. And I'll just leave this here for just a moment. You can apply online. And so I'll leave this here. If you do have a request for an appointment, we want to be available for you. If that's more feasible, to come to the office, if we're able to go to the home, and whatever's going to be most feasible to help you and assist in this process. And so that's all I have. Thank you so much for letting me talk to all of you today.
Thank you so much, Christina. Yes,
Thanks,
I
Kirk.
highly encourage everybody listening to this. You are caregiving for somebody. Please look into the LA Found program. The tracking bracelets would have absolutely saved me 2 years of looking for my wife and probably get her home safely very quickly. So we do have some questions that I'm happy to either answer or to direct to one of our expert panelists. One of the questions I noticed was that it's no longer available, Project Lifesaver is no longer available in San Bernardino County. So LA Found is an LA County program, and it is available there. And another question we have is, my mom has been feeling nervous, scared at night when she is home alone. Her household members get home from work about 7 p.m. Sometimes she forgets that they are away or gets a little confused. What can we do to make her feel more secure in her home? Any tips for getting them to wear the bracelet that can help if they get lost? So, Roxy, would you like to take that question?
Sure. Initially, what I'm thinking is some caregivers use like a bulletin board, a whiteboard, where they write the schedule of the day, if there's any appointments, who's going in and out, who's coming. that might be helpful. That's something that you can try, and probably just constant reminders, friendly reminders, gentle reminders that what's going to take place, who's going to come and go. And I think for anybody who's going in and out of the house, to always introduce themselves as if it's the first time that they are meeting, or to provide a gentle reminder, hello, it's me, Roxy. I'm here today to help you with X, Y, and Z. I think that friendly reminder can be very helpful. There was one other thing, I believe. Any tips for wearing the bracelet, I believe?
Right. Are there any tips for getting to wear the bracelet that can help if they get lost? So,
Yes.
yeah, Christina, would you like to answer that about how to get the bracelet on them?
So we get a lot of information from our participants and families, how they approach it. A lot of them do approach it not being a tracking bracelet, but more of a medical type of bracelet that will be helpful to them. There are different types of colors that we also provide, and a lot of people will sometimes decorate it. I know that that provides some kind of help with the Project Lifesaver. And then we just offer to wear it if it's too sensitive on the wrist, put it on the ankle, or put it somewhere in a pocket where you can attach it to the clothing. There's been some of those that have done that, especially those with, and I know we're talking about Alzheimer's LA, but some have actually done that inside of a hat, inside of a purse. And we generally would rather it be on the body somewhere, but we can go over some great recommendations with each person that needs it. So
Thank you. So those were great answers, and actually I have experience with both those types of things. So on Roxy's answer, I actually had a picture of myself and a note to my wife if she was going to be with somebody else, or if I was going to be gone for a little bit. And the note just said when I was going to be back. And so she could look at that again and remind her that I was coming back at a certain time. And that was very, very helpful and really calmed her down. And on the wearing the bracelet, another Alzheimer's Los Angeles client, their husband wore the bracelet for a while and then decided he wasn't very happy about that. But he got back into a group with some friends of his, and they were all wearing their bracelets, and so that made him feel much better. So if you happen to know somebody else that's wearing a bracelet, that might be a really good cue to your loved one that it would be a great thing to do as well. All right, sorry for that little personal introduction there. So the next question is dementia a step before Alzheimer's? So Roxy, would you like to take that one again, please?
That's a great question. We wouldn't necessarily say it's a step before Alzheimer's. I think when we're talking about dementia and Alzheimer's disease, we're talking about two different things. When we say dementia, we're classifying it as a condition. So it's kind of like if we were to make the analogy, if someone says, I have cancer, the next follow-up we would ask is, what is causing that cancer? Is the cause of that cancer skin cancer? Is it breast cancer? Is it prostate cancer? So there's different kinds of causes for cancer. And that would be very similar for dementia as well. So when there is Alzheimer's disease, there will be dementia. So, but when there is not a diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and it's just a general diagnosis of dementia, our follow-up question would be, what is causing that dementia? Is it caused by Alzheimer's disease? Is it caused by vascular dementia? So dementia is really describing a set of symptoms, changes associated with the brain. Some people may have a very specific diagnosis, but a diagnosis of dementia is what is considered a general diagnosis. So after that, we try to pinpoint and identify and provide like a dignified diagnosis of what is causing that dementia. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. So I think it's safe to say that Alzheimer's is a form of dementia, right? It's not
Yes,
right.
yes, correct.
All right, the next question. My father-in-law, and this is a tough one. This is a very common problem. My father-in-law has mild dementia. He still drives and does a lot of things for himself. How will I know he should not do something for himself? And how do I transition him to accept help or to accept someone else has to do it for him. He gets irritated about people trying to help him. Okay, Roxy, back to you.
That's a common one, and driving may be of concern for a lot of families. And fortunately, there is the Department of Motor Vehicles that can help and assist. And what you can do is if you are concerned about your loved ones driving, or if you're not really sure if they're a safe driver, you want to get them evaluated, what you can do is there's a form that you can sign and submit to the DMV, and you can be anonymous. So your loved one won't find out that it was you who made this request. You can sign and submit that form, and they will get, your loved one will get a letter in the mail, very generic letter that, it's time for a reevaluation. So the DMV will evaluate their driving abilities to see if it is safe for them to continue to do so. And they may or may not pass that driving test. So that's one step that you can take. And accepting help, that's also a difficult one. What we try to do is we have something called therapeutic fibbing, which is a helpful form of communication. So I'll give you an example. If you say, Dad, it's time for you to get some help in the home. I think we should get a helper here, a companion here for you to help you. And if your dad says, no, I don't need any help, I'm completely fine by myself, what we can do is sort of complement that and say, yes, I do agree with you. You don't need any help. You are fine. You can do everything by yourself. And that's validating what they are saying, validating their emotions, validating them. And that can be very comforting and therapeutic for them. And conversely, if we try to reason or use logic and say things like, well, you do need help. You're diagnosed with dementia. You have memory problems. That may make things much worse. So if we try that therapeutic fib approach, yes, you don't need any help. Yes, you are fine by yourself, but it would make me feel a lot more safe and happy knowing that I can give you some sort of support. Even though I may not be here all the time, there may be someone that can help you or be with you. So there's different approaches with that, and there's no right or wrong. You can try different things until you see that it works, and everybody is different, but it is a trial and error. So it does require some creativity.
Thank you, Roxy. And I'd also like to let the questioner know that you can get more specific answers from calling the Alzheimer's Los Angeles helpline. So we're out of time. If you had a question, we didn't get to it, we will email you back with an answer. Thank you very much for the team. I thought this was a great presentation. If you have additional questions, please call the helpline at 844-435-7259 or visit the websites that were put up earlier. And again, all of this information will be sent to you in the email. As you exit the Zoom, would you please take a minute and complete a short survey? This will really help us improve these presentations for the future. And thank you again for your time.